Welcome back to another great episode of the Adam Talks podcast.
I started out as a wrestler, 10 years Olympic style. So I started when I was about 9 or so.
We said we don't want Bruce Wayne to be old and that's his reason for retiring. He has to have a reason to not be doing this.
I knew I'd always wanted to do it. I never saw myself at a desk job, and anytime I thought of something else, it always brought me back to wrestling.
Man, I don't like fancy pad work. I like realistic pad work. Am I punching correctly? Am I balanced? Like a lot of them guys will hold pads way outside their faces, and it's just, I don't believe in that type of training, man. Like,
for a couple promotions, I wrestled under a mask, and we don't talk about those days. Because those days were fun and really embarrassing.
It is the first annual Berryville Film Festival. I'm the founder and festival director for it. So it's exciting to bring something to a small town, something brand new.
I think anything you do in wrestling has to have meaning to it. No matter, like facial expressions, the high-flying moves, all that stuff like that.
Welcome to another great episode of the Adam Talks podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe on all platforms. Today we have author Cae Cordell on the show. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I can't wait for you to listen. So without any further ado, here's my conversation with Cae Cordell. We're here with an awesome guest today. We're here with Cae Cordell, a writer working on a script for a movie. It's going to be a lot of fun talking to her. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Adam, for having me. It's very gracious of you.
Hey, not a problem. I love having people on, especially if they reach out to me and you reached out to me. How did you come to find out about the show to begin with?
Do you know Ty King?
I'm not entirely sure.
Okay, he's out of Little Rock, and I'm always getting on and looking because I'm doing a lot of podcast TV shows. And so I'm always looking, and I saw your name come across, and I thought, he's an Arkansas native. Maybe I better talk to him. And,
yes, ma'am.
Get something out here in Arkansas. I belong to Women in Film in Arkansas, out of Little Rock. We are a state organization, with writers, directors, producers, actors in Arkansas who are working on bringing the film industry here in Arkansas.
Oh,
and
wow.
I also have talked with Chris Crane, the commissioner of film here in Arkansas. So we're working. I'm just part of a group that I taught theater, drama, communications in high school. And then I taught for a medium security prison, college in a prison out in Oregon. So I came home to Arkansas.
Wow.
So
that's awesome. That's awesome. You were a high school drama teacher? You taught drama in high school?
In state of Washington.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
I was certified to teach in Idaho and Washington, and then I taught for a college in Oregon in the prison system.
What is the most challenging part of being a drama teacher in high school? Is it the students being rowdy, or is it something completely separate from that?
I had 7 students out of 140 that were absolutely stunning actors. The hardest thing today is the lack of discipline or parental backing in the classroom. Unfortunately, they send their students to school and believe that you'll correct all the damage they've been done at home. And it's sad in our education system. There's so much to be offered. We've got teachers that are burning out because students don't want to listen. And we have to try to teach, to give them something. There is no mashed potatoes, instant potatoes to give a student. If they don't desire to learn, there's no way to help them. You have to have something in the classroom. Kids are on their phones at home, they're on tablets, they're on the computer. They have instant everything, but classroom isn't instant. There's no instant answers in the classroom.
Okay.
Now, in the state of Washington, where I taught, I was hired because I had taught in the prison, and we'd had drive-by shootings, classroom drama, attacking each other in the hallways, and that's what I walked into to teach. Had no idea and it was a learning curve.
I imagine.
I fulfilled my contract and went back to the prison to teach. That's
She
enough
said,
said.
no more of that. No more of that. I'm going to get out of here.
Now, I
So
substitute taught for 9 years in the state of Idaho. That was a joy. That was a joyful experience
Oh,
in the
wow.
classroom. You walk in and sometimes a different class every day. I had a lot of good students. I enjoyed them. It was a different mindset in the state of Washington.
Oh, yeah?
But
How so?
I'm glad I'm not in the classroom right now.
I hear that. Yeah, you're working on. You've written this book. You're working on making a script from the book. Am I right?
Yes, I've got a script. I've had it copyrighted, and I'm reworking it and I've listened to a lot of directors, producers' criticism. I placed in the top 8 in film content 2022. So I've been working on it and trying to get it perfected. And I've got 3 or 4 directors who have said, we'd sure like to make this. What we have to come up with is someone to invest and believe in the movie. It's an Arkansas story, and I'm a good writer. I just didn't have time to send you some books. Sorry about that.
No, it's all right.
A lot of people today refuse to deal with anything about sexual abuse. And my story is growing up here in Arkansas, being molested by my father, mother, brother, and 3 uncles. And it's something that I talk about. I've written a counseling book. I do counseling for battered women and have for the last 30-something years. I do it free in the community. I get them lawyers. I go to court with them. And I decided if I tell my story, maybe it'll help those out there afraid to name their perpetrator. Unless we bring it out of the closet and come out of the closet and say, I was molested, the shame will keep us in the closet with the door shut. And I'm fighting to see laws changed, tightened up. We have 6 advocacy centers in Arkansas now. And I've spent 61 years of my life being a minister. I'm also a chaplain. And I try to give back to the community, and this is one way I know to give back. I donate my counseling book to any law firm that is suing for victims of abuse in churches. And they use it. I sign it, an agreement, let them use it free. I don't charge for it. I give it to any prosecutor, any sheriff's department that wants it. I donate it to them. I developed the communication theory for the book at Boise State University. I graduated Arkansas Tech and then Boise State University out in Idaho. And this is something close and dear to my heart. Probably this is not something you've had discussed on your show.
No. I have not had this kind of stuff discussed, but here's the thing. I'm always open to discussing things because everybody is different. Everybody goes through things differently and they process things differently. So for people that may be listening, they may get something out of this, and hell, I may even get some stuff out of this, because in my life and in my past, I've had verbal abuse, not sexual abuse or anything like that, but I've been verbally abused in relationships that I've had in the past. I've had a whole bunch of other things that's happened in my life. So the things you're telling me, whenever we're talking about this stuff, could affect me, but not only me, the wider audience watching this. And I hope that it does touch somebody and helps them.
The counseling book is When Forgiveness Isn't Enough, and my name is spelled Cae Cordell, and you can find the books on just caecordell.com. But until one person speaks out, change can't happen. And so I decided several years ago that I would tell my story. When I first wrote the book, I just knew my parents was outside the door going to grab me for writing it, telling it. To me, it's a blessing. They're both gone. All 3 uncles are dead. And there's no one in the book that is alive. And so that's the reason I'm using real names in the script. And it's a true story. And I'm hoping that it will help not only someone like me, by telling and speaking out, but it'll help every person that comes and sees the movie once it's made.
Definitely,
I think my story plays right up there with the sound of freedom and where the crawdads sing.
I haven't watched that yet. I've been wanting to watch Where the Crawdads Sing. I have not seen that yet.
Oh, it is wonderful. And as I said, I'm a good writer. And my professor at Boise State University told me, he said, if you don't turn my thesis on forced forgiveness, I did that. I looked at religion, law enforcement, and society, how they deal with rape and abuse. We've got a lot of fine actors here in Arkansas, and they've been helping me over the last 2-3 years helping. We've been looking at this script and trying to get it perfected. And Buddy Campbell is a local actor, and he has put his heart and soul into helping. And he drives Miss Daisy everywhere. I'm Miss Daisy. He takes me. He's just been a blessing, and so many of the others in the area. Becky, I was trying to think of her last name. Anyway, she's the head of Women in Film in Arkansas, and her name escapes me. She'll have to forgive me. But she's putting her heart and soul in developing a good film organization here in Arkansas, and I'm just really thankful that we've got people who care enough to want this story told.
Definitely, and it's a very intense story. It's a very gut-wrenching story, I'm sure, throughout most of it, and it's a story of survival. Would you mind taking us through some of that, some of what the story is about in your life? If my words could work, I'd be great. But
okay, I can't ever remember not being touched wrongly by someone in my family, and I grew up in Madison County, and it was an everyday life, and I had no idea that life was different. I'll try not to give too much of the story away, but when you have parents who believe that they're doing the will of God in what they're doing to their children, it's tragic. And they would go to church, very intense in a religion, and then what they did to us, they did it in the name of God, as if God had given them the right, and they owned us, and that was what we were told. Every day we were beaten, starved. I started work at the school to buy my books and work for my lunch when I was in the 8th grade. They wouldn't feed me any longer at home because I wouldn't marry a guy. I was 12 years old, and they tried to force me to marry someone, and I refused. The tragic thing is, this is a story of any child, any day of the week, any year, at any age. I'm not alone in what's happening. We've got children in the foster care system that are being abused, and we practice and preach reunification. No child should have to go back home and be raped again or abused. That's what I'm fighting against. Us clean up the welfare DHS system, us get a constitutional amendment passed to protect battered women and men, any boy or girl who's being abused. We need something so that the victim, before they turn 23, can turn around and sue the perpetrator and bring this out in the open. The shame, Adam, is on the perpetrator. The victim is not responsible for anything. And the church, unfortunately, I pastored a few churches, traveled extensively in ministry, and the church forces the victim to recant or tells them, oh, you have to forgive the perpetrator. That's not scripture. That's not at all. And I based my thesis on Romans 1:18 through verse 32. Basically, it says a man who knows and understands that raping a child or sexual abusing a child is a sin and does it anyway, it's an eternal death sentence to them, man or a woman who chooses to do this. And in my experience, I did a counseling class at the prison, and in my experience, only about 2% ever own their crime and admit that they have sexually abused someone. That ownership is the key to a perpetrator stopping. If they can own it and admit, I did it. I had one client in another state. He came to me and told me he was hurting his daughter. I told him to go turn himself in. I thought they'd work with him. But you know what they did? They gave him 15 years in prison for admitting the truth. And he served it. He's gotten out. His wife stood by him, and he took ownership of what he did. And I told him, I said, you did the crime, now pay for it and be a man, get education, further who you are. And I said, I'm proud of you. And I'm proud of any man or a woman who will admit what they've done and take ownership of it to the victim. Because it's important that a victim owes no one an apology. The only one she owes forgiveness to is he or she self. We have to forgive ourselves. Another thing that I'd like to stress is it's okay to be mad at God. It's really important for the victim to understand anyone that's been physically, mentally, or spiritually abused. It's okay to be mad at God. I say he's man enough to take it. And sometime you got to tell God, you know, I've been mad at you 15 years, 30 years. I'm sorry. I need to tell you I'm sorry, and I want to tell you I forgive you for how I felt. And it's important. I've worked with a lot of groups of women, and when they get that, it's like a light bulb goes off. It's an epiphany, and they're going, whoa. And they walk in a different way, they talk in a different way, and they look at themselves in the mirror, and they don't see the ugly person that they have imagined themselves to be. It's freedom. That's what I'm about.
Freedom. Definitely. What is the thing people have the most trouble doing whenever it comes to stepping out into the light with what's happened to them or what they've done? What do you in all your years of experience in this, what is the most difficult thing for either the victim or the person doing this to do in this? Is it admittance? Is it stepping out in the light? Or
for the perpetrator, he doesn't want to get caught. He likes what he's doing, and he's looking for his next victim. As I said, only about 2% ever own what they've done. And did you know that a man who reaches 70, if he's been a rapist, he has the potential of having 700 victims time he's 70 years old?
Holy cow.
And that's the tragedy. That's the tragedy. Every few seconds while we're talking, there's someone being raped. I think it's every 68 seconds. Did you know that Arkansas is the second highest state in the nation for sexual abuse? That's tragic to me. And that's why I'm taking on speaking out and working and trying to stop this. For the victim, it's the shame they feel, the fear that the perpetrator will come back, that they won't be believed. Lots of times a woman will marry a man and she has children, and he will sexually offend them. She sticks up for the man. She won't back her children or believe them. And that's the hardest. That's what I found out in the foster care system, was these little children told the truth, and the mothers wouldn't stand by them. They took the man's side, gave up their children rather than kicking him to the curb and having him prosecuted. There is no sexual relationship with a man or a woman that's more important than your children. Our children 100%. Have to come first. And that is so important. My second book, The Hat Man, discusses the marriage. I married both my mother and father, unfortunately, and found out after 20 years of marriage that he had offended all of our children. And I came back to Arkansas. I've been to the churches I pastored, and I've found so far about 36 victims that he has abused. He's
Holy
dead.
Cow.
And I'm glad. But unfortunately, when you've been victimized, so much of the time you'll grow up and marry exactly what you were raised in. And I had to face that. I've had to live with it. I put my children in counseling. I've worked with them. And if you're out there being abused, get into counseling. Find somebody that can help you heal, because you are owed a wonderful life. Not everything's going to be roses or daisies, but we don't have to spend our life in a deadfall pushing up daisies from our abuse and letting it control us. I believe that as we learn who we are to take control of ourselves and live a life of freedom.
It takes away a child's innocence whenever something like that happens. It takes away any feeling of being a kid. After a little while, they're living with fear, living with the fear for people that I know that have confided in me about this stuff. It's the fear of retaliation from the person that did it.
Yes.
It's the fear of what if they think I'm lying to them, or what if they don't believe me? And that I feel like has to be the most the most traumatic part, apart from the actual happening. That has to be one of the more traumatic things about it, because you feel alone, you feel isolated, I'd imagine anyways.
Yeah, no, it's the truth. And the child goes to school, sees these other children being normal, playing normally, and here they've got all this gut-wrenching anger and abuse night after night happening to them. And they just want one day. They just want one day where they're free of the fear, of the trauma, of the worthlessness, and of knowing somebody cares about them. And unfortunately, for years, the cops have told the victim, "Oh, you just imagined it, you're a liar." And we've got a lot better training now in most, police and law enforcement. They're getting training, but it's still not where it needs to be. Here in Arkansas, there's very few lawyers to help victims. But if you're a victim and you're still underage, I think it's 21 or 23 here in Arkansas. No, the legislature just gave a 2-year stay that you can go and report it and sue just in the last legislation session, I do believe. So I encourage you, if you're out there, go tell the police. Contact me on Facebook. I'll help you go tell them. Go after these people. Don't be afraid. And what I wanted to bring out too, you just mentioned about the how that it steals a child's childhood. What it is, the scripture. I'll go back to the scripture. The scripture says if you stole somebody, go back, restore 10 times what you've stole. And that's the reason I teach that sexual offenses are a sin against the nature, the holiness of God, blasphemous acts, which is eternal death, according to Romans 18 through 32. But how can a man or a woman who's raped a child, sexually abused, groomed, hurt them for years, they can't ever give back that innocence that they stole? That's the damnation from a religious standpoint. And this is something I hope this helps someone out there to know God had absolutely nothing to do with choices of bad people who harmed you. You had no choice. And this is something that we need, we're teaching now in school, in a younger age, in the classrooms, that nobody's supposed to touch you. Schools are having to teach now. I taught in a school district, and I was in 6th through 8th grade at that time working, and I got to noticing that at lunch and between class change, students were groping each other, running, grabbing, groping. And then I found that one student confided in me that the 8th grader girls had all made a pact they were going to get pregnant. And so I went to the school board and exposed this, and so they implemented absolute no body contact. We had several girls pregnant that year. It was absolutely It was unreasonable. I couldn't believe.
They're just babies. They're like 13. They're like 14 years old, man.
Yes,
they're just babies.
Having baby. And it was an absolute horror. I told the principal, I said, I want you to come and stand with me in the hallway. And I said, you're going to do it for 1 week. And every day at lunch, I met him. And I said, where have you been as principal of this school? I said, can you not see what's happening? He was horrified and mortified.
God.
And one of the teachers came to me and said, I've got one of the kids in my class, she's being raped every night by her dad. She said, can you turn it in? I said, no, it's your job. I called, of course, I had a deputy sheriff I called, and he got in touch, but she had to tell. People,
Yeah.
unfortunately, the church and people do not want to take responsibility of a man who's a rapist. They feel like it's so shameful. Surely that godly man wouldn't be touching someone. It's terrifying that we've become ostriches burying our head in the sand and not looking up at the sky and see it's falling on us from Chicken Little.
Yeah. Man, those kids are babies themselves, and they're having babies.
Yeah.
You know, I have a daughter. She's 13. She's in 7th grade going into 8th grade. And I'm like, they're just babies. Hearing that is just crazy. What is the difficult? All right, so whenever you got these younger people, like we talked about, their innocence is taken whenever it happens to them at a young age. They can't react correctly to anything because they don't know what normal is. You know, what happens whenever they get to be adults and they still haven't said anything? How do you help them to be able to talk about things?
I'll tell you the backside of it. Unfortunately, many become drug addicts, alcoholics. They self-abuse. They become promiscuous. They have such low esteem. They're always wanting someone to verify that they're worthwhile. So they get themselves in sexual relationship after relationship that is destructive. And the drug addiction in this country is part of that culture. In fact, I had a professor at Boise State University that had been abused, and she turned to promiscuity, plus then joined how that we're having the issues today on the other side of sexuality. I'm not going to speak it aloud. I don't want to offend anyone. But too many people are hurt and wounded. They make bad marriages. They go through 6, 7, 8 marriages, never finding holistic healing of all the things that are wrong. A person should have a right to a sound mind, a sound body, and sound spirituality, whatever their choice. It all should be connected and healthy. And as long as the church denies deniability and liability, we've got deacons I've encountered in the ministry in Oregon, in Baker City, Oregon. I was preaching a revival there, and 3 or 4 little girls came to me the 3rd or 4th night into the revival and said, "We're being hurt." And I thought, what? And next night they came again, and I said, who's hurting you? And I said, "Is he here?" They pointed to the head deacon of that church up on the platform leading the singing. It was their grandpa. He had molested 34 members of his family, and the Pentecost Church of God had known about it, covered it up, ordered me to cover it up. I didn't. It's included in the Hat Man, that story. You don't cover things up. And I resigned the church because of that. And I helped those girls, and we took it down to the city police. They said they were carrying all of his confession and lost it down a manhole, down a graded manhole. And I'm thinking, what? So I got the state police involved. It was a mess. I mean, I've been through so many battles, I should have scars all over me.
You got them scars. You got them inside scars.
Well, I fight. I will not allow a man or a woman, a child, anyone to be abused. I don't care if someone dating. There's people out there now on dating sites claiming to be single but are married with children, claiming to be all these fantastic stories, but they're liars. We've got to be better discerners in the world. I mean, there's people out there on Facebook now. It's hard to trust anybody. That's why I'm still single.
I hear you. I got a divorce from my ex-wife August of last year, or August 2 years ago, I want to say. And I've been with my fiance since, or I've been with my wife since then. And we just got married a couple weeks back and went to Corpus Christi and stuff like that. But oh my gosh, it was wild trying to be in the dating game in this time with all the apps and everything. It's like, what? There's a picture of something, they look nice, but then you go and you try to talk to them, and
you don't know who the real person is.
Yeah.
With this, to me, it's creepy, and I worry for our younger generation. And I've got, I try to help teach young women. Look, you got to be, and men too. I mean, there's women out there preying on men just as well as vice versa. And I mean, this is a cycle. Unfortunately, Facebook and things like Facebook, this public exposure, you can hide yourself and no one knows the true you.
Yeah.
And this is where sex offenders, they have the ability to get on the games that are being played on phones. And parents have got to watch on the phone and make sure the apps that they've got, that someone isn't contacting your children and luring them outside to somewhere else to play these games and to abuse them.
Yeah.
Don't believe that the youth leader at church is all right. Go and make sure he is or she is. Don't just send your kids blindly to scouts or to, FFA programs in school. Don't send your kids to sports without knowing who these people are. Be aware of your child's surroundings. Be aware that these people, they're real. They just are fakes. They know how to groom, how to lure your child. And as I said, get smart. Protect your children at all cost.
Definitely. My daughter is 13. She's going to be 14 in September. And she has walked around trying to show me these outfits. And I'm like, you're not, no, you gotta, we're going to wait a couple years before you wear something like that out of the house, because you're 13. You're not 18. You're not 19. You're not a young woman. You're a girl still. You're an adolescent, just starting to grow into your body and whatnot. You don't need to put yourself out there as a sexual symbol or anything like that. Because
television, entertainment, our movies, they're geared to sexualize our kids. And unfortunately, peer pressure at school is sexualizing our children 100%.
Definitely.
And being accepted, wanting to be in the in group. What we need to teach our kids is how to stand alone.
Yeah.
And know who they are and avoid peer pressure.
Definitely.
Be there for your kids. You're doing a wonderful thing talking to your daughter, sharing with her and getting her to trust you. Our children need to be able to come and tell us, Uncle Tom, Uncle Henry, Uncle Jerry, they touched me and it made me feel funny.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's the next door neighbor, the cop down the street. We need to build trust with our children so that they can tell us and we can protect them. I'll take a hammer and go after anyone that touches my kids or my grandkids.
Yeah. They better watch out. You're going to get bludgeoned to death. It's going to happen. Don't touch mine.
I'm going to go after them. Yes.
I hear you. Let's talk about your book a little bit. When is it? Is it already online?
Yes, I got 17 books. Yes. This is Redbird.
Hey, wow.
This is the first book. This is my life story up to age 18. This tells about my family, the ones who were perpetrators and the abusers. This is the second book, The Hat Man. This is the story of my marriage, and of my husband was convicted of abusing the children.
Oh my gosh.
In the state of Idaho. I grew up.
How do you?
My children, and this is the counseling book. If I can get it here. This book will help.
When forgiveness isn't enough.
I beg your pardon?
Said when forgiveness isn't enough. Is that what it says?
Yes, that's the name of the book. When forgiveness isn't enough.
Okay.
These books are all on Amazon.com, and if you're thinking about suing and have legal grounds to sue, you let me know, and I'll give the law firm. I'll send your law firm the book to use in court. I do
Excellent.
that
Excellent.
free. It's something that I can give back. I've had so many people that's helped me through the years. Now, in school, I did have teachers who cared, and there's nothing the law would do to my parents, but the teachers let me wash my clothes at school. The cooks in the lunchroom gave me food 3 times a day. I grew 9 inches in 1 year.
Oh, wow.
I got food to eat at school. So, I
There
mean,
you
I thought
go.
I was doing well. It didn't matter if it's cold. I ate whatever they gave me at the end of the day before I went home. They'd hide it
I
for
hear
me to
you.
come into the lunchroom and eat. Yeah. But all I can say, Adam, is fighting is the only way for recovery. Fighting back, getting help, believing in yourself. Most of all, know that when you've told the truth, you've not lied to yourself. And I think that's the most important thing of all in life, is that we don't lie to ourselves about the truth. And that's almost a double thing there, but
How
it's very
how did
important.
you how did you make it through
Go
after
ahead.
finding out about your husband doing that?
Fortunately, I went to the police, and at first, the prosecutor laughed in my face, and the sheriff told me to go home and quit persecuting the old man. But what I did, I went to the Attorney General's office in Boise, Idaho. Went up, was standing there, couldn't find him, there was nobody there, and one of his investigators saw me standing there with my baby girl crying. And he came and asked me what was wrong. And they helped me. The governor got involved. Governor Cecil Andrus was pivotal in helping me fight. I couldn't get an attorney to help me. Finally found a little Hispanic attorney, Sergio Gutierrez. He became the first Hispanic Idaho appeals judge ever in the history of Idaho. The governor,
Oh,
because he
wow.
fought and helped the children and I, he didn't. You know what he took? 87 or 89 cents is all the money I had. And he asked me for that money. He said he was now my little girl's attorney and mine.
Oh,
He got
wow.
down on his knees and hugged my little girl, and he says, I believe you, and I am now your attorney. He carried her picture for years in his black portfolio that he used on the bench. Opened it up, and he had her picture there. It spurred him to fight and get into the legal system. Governor Andrus said because he had helped us for me for almost 4 years, little past $1,450 is all he charged me. Let me pay
Oh,
that as I
wow.
could. And he was a blessing, and he was blessed. He was a blessing to the whole state of Idaho on the appeals court. I had Richard Stallings was a congressman. He got involved, and my husband, I'd got his 100% disability with the VA, and he got into his records, and it showed where I had told the VA. They covered it up. In the book, I sue the VA and I win a lawsuit. They admitted they knew he was raping the children and did nothing to stop him. They didn't report it.
What the heck?
And there's a letter in there of a mission that's I put in the book. Nobody. I mean, I had no help when I was a little kid. But in my heart, my children were vitally important to me, and I determined nobody, I don't care who they were, would touch my children. Even today, if somebody's hurt my kid, I'm going to find you, and you're going to go down with the law. The
Yeah.
law will help if we believe in them. And it's so important. Bob Miles was a detective. He helped, and the prosecutor did not. The governor told me that he believed my ex-brother-in-law, who was a multimillionaire, bought him off. And I campaigned in the election, and Governor Andrus sent a lady named Evelyn Bowe to help me. I told my story, and he lost by 16 votes, that crooked prosecutor did. Calls me
Oh,
up at
wow.
midnight and tells me, has one of his office help call me up at midnight, says, you're a dead woman. I said, I have you on recording. And I turned that over to the governor and the attorney general. We don't have to be afraid. Most of these people are cowards. I call them yellow-livered, belly, dark, weird people. They're just cowards who abuse children.
Yeah.
But I learned so much teaching in the prison. So the huge population of the 3,000 men prison I taught in were sex offenders. So I learned a lot. I was scared to death to go in there and teach. I mean, it was terrifying. But I made myself learn how to fight. And fight I did. And I'm still fighting today. And the main thing, rapists and, domestic abusers, they use fear and intimidation, control, power, and manipulation. This is not about sexual gratification. This is not about sex like God meant sex to be wonderful, beautiful. It's enjoyable. There's no denying that. But these men do it for power, control, and manipulation of their victim. They get off on it. And they get a high out of grooming their little victims. It may take them years. I know of a case here in Arkansas. There was a minister groomed a little girl, and she has told county won't even prosecute him or arrest him because he's a minister. He's still out there.
Is a lot of these things that happen, is it people just don't want to look bad, so they're like, oh no, that never happened, and they want to cover it up to hide it from the public, so that way they still look good?
Oh yeah, honey, a perpetrator doesn't want the public to know who he is. Well, you can look at people that's been convicted, and on television, they cover their face. They're cowards. They don't want to be known. In prison, they're the lowest of the low, and a lot of them, they get castrated, they're raped themselves, and the pecking order in prison is real. And a sex offender, I had so many of them in my counseling class. I won't speak publicly of the things I saw them doing in my class, but they get off just by touching, or looking, or smelling. The officers in the prison, they told me, said, "You're innocent." I said, "No, I'm not. I'm just learning." But it's amazing what these people will do, and they're all around us. I mean, neighbor Johnny, he may be the biggest perpetrator in the world. Check out your neighbors. Get on Court Connect. Look who they are. Don't trust anybody. I trust no one now. I check them out. I make sure that they're reliable. I have my sources that help. I've become quite a good detective. I'm training other women how to fight back. And when the epiphany hits them, they have the power, not the perpetrator. It's a whole different life for them. And they come out. What does it
look like whenever that epiphany hits them? Like, from your perspective, what does that epiphany look like when you're witnessing it happen to someone else?
Their whole face lights up. Their whole body changes posture. And their eyes light up. And they sit up straight. And they kind of look around at everybody else. And they said, "That's how it is?" And it is. I'll tell you one story about a guy I served as a chaplain in a hospital. And one guy, he wouldn't let me in the door. Didn't believe in God. So I figured it out. I figured he was mad at God. And he was. So I stood at the door one day and I said, when are you going to let me talk to you? Never. And I said, well, when you get over being mad at God, you tell me and I'll come in. Well, 2 or 3 days later, I come to the door and he said, well, you showed up again. He said, might as well get in here. And do you know, I was able to lead him to the Lord. He was so mad.
Oh, wow.
He'd done things, he'd been in the service and he'd done things that he felt like God never forgive him. And I said, why? I said, the government ordered you to fight. There is no dishonor in being a service person or being in the service. And we have so many ways of being victimized, not only by abuse, but by life circumstances. And do you know, he asked the Lord to forgive him. And you ought to see him. He got in a wheelchair, dying with cancer, died 6 weeks later. He went all over the hospital and said, you know, all I had to do is say I'm sorry. He kept looking at me. He said, you mean it's that easy for forgiveness? I said, sure. You just got to tell God you're sorry for. I said, I don't know what kind of person he is, but God does. And his whole body lit up like a candle. It was so amazing to see the change in that man.
Whenever you're helping these, whenever you're able to talk to these younger individuals about them going through problems, how do you approach the situation to be able to ask them about that? Because it's a real touchy thing, you know, with the sexual abuse, or even if it's physical abuse, not even just sexual abuse, if they're just being abused and they're too afraid to say anything. What are some things that you picked up on over all of your years that you could be like, well, they look like, you know, or they're exhibiting signs of this? And if you notice that, how do you talk to them about it or try to, you know, ask them about it?
In the work I do, the women come to me.
Oh, okay.
And they find me, but I only help a woman if they're willing to get out of the situation. I find otherwise I spin my wheels. If a woman's willing to leave, I will help her find an attorney and do counseling with her free. I will train her how to act in court and how to be in court. I worked with a lady in Idaho whose best friend came up from California and killed her husband. The husband was raping their little girl, so her best friend came from California and murdered him. She was tried for first-degree murder, and I worked with her and the law firm and trained her how to act in court. And the jury let her off, 100%.
Oh, wow.
They voted that she was not guilty. And I used to be found often by women wanting help. The word gets around. At my age, I don't take on many cases now at all to help. But if a woman contacts me and says, I need help, the first question I ask, are you willing to leave? And they'll come for counseling, and if after 2 or 3 sessions, if they can't make up their mind, women will go back often, 32 times, and it winds up in homicide. And if it's too important, what I have to do is to, as I said, spin my wheels and waste my time. And it's hard on the family. A person has to choose, man or woman. They've got to choose. Are they going to stay in this kind of relationship, be beat down for the rest of their lives, blame themselves, or they want to be free? And if it's freedom they want, I have a few attorneys that will let them pay their fee and then take them on as a client. They may take them a few months to get the money. They may have to stay a few months. I've known women that's taken them 1.5 years to get away. But the goal is to get them where they can leave the situation and save themselves and their children. But unfortunately, the law in Arkansas has changed in the last 2 years, that didn't matter what the man is doing, he gets to see the children every other week. It's a travesty to me that the children are still allowed, and you're not able to present evidence in court. Judges don't want to hear it. They divide the property 50-50, and the woman, the children are the losers. The man and woman, they split, they go their way, but then there's the children left in between. And to me, this is the worst, as I said, a travesty I have encountered in working with children. And I hope the legislature gets some gumption and goes back and looks and changes the law in Arkansas that the children are protected. Something has to change, and that's another reason I'm speaking out. If I can be the voice of reason, the voice of change, I'm willing to testify in front of the legislature, tell my story, work with any group. We just have to fight Adam, someone has to see reason and change what's happening to our children.
Definitely, definitely. To get on a little bit of a different note than we've been on, you've been writing for a while, I'm sure, and you have several books that have been put out. What is the most difficult thing, or do you have any writer's block or secrets how to overcome writer's block whenever you're writing or anything?
I've been writing the last 8 or 9 years consistently, but I made up my mind. I'm working on another counseling book, and I made up my mind. I've taken the summer about 4 or 5 months off, but I'm getting kind of the urge to get back and I've got 6 books going, and I'm kind of getting to thinking, well, you might better get them finished before God takes you home. So.
Oh my goodness! Like
So
I like right. Oh, sorry.
I have made a huge garden this year. I have canned, and I've got so much produce. I've never sold my garden before, but I'm selling my gardening produce. It's been fun. And I make all kinds of relishes and jellies, and so people are asking me, can I buy them? So I'm thinking, well, I'll sell them. But I'm just having fun the last few months and just taking time off. I build houses for my daughter on the side. I'm a licensed contractor. So that's the reason I've taken off a few months to just kind of rest. And I told her, I said, eventually we'll get started back again. But I'm a licensed contractor, state of Arkansas. I build homes just for her. I'm her boss and she's mine. And it's been fun. I designed the homes. I sell small homes. I don't do the great big elaborate homes. And so far I've never built for anybody else. I've had several wanting me to build because I designed these cute little homes that are energy efficient and they're spacey in a small space. I mean, plenty of room. I have a room for everything. And I'm out here on a mountain and I have chickens and rabbits. I'm just having fun. I'm being a kid again that I never got to be.
There you go. There you go. Getting to enjoy life.
I'm having fun. And
How do you? Have you ever, whenever it comes to doing that stuff, did you just pick up on it naturally, or is it just something that you go, I'm going to do this, and one day you just started doing it?
Now, are you talking about writing or building?
Either or, both.
Okay. When I got married, my husband was lazy as he could be, and after 4 years, I figured out he was not going to do anything. So he had an old house, and I sat in, and I hired people to teach me how to build and remodel. And I'd hire them to do something, and then I was their helper, and eventually I learned how to do it. And I'm good at it. I love what I do. And I build a strong house. I build it to stand and to last. And but writing, I took writing courses in college and all kinds of and then when I moved back here to Arkansas in church, a lady come to me and she said, I hear you're a writer. She said, I want to be your editor. Did God ever send me a gift? Her name was Lynn Montaigne. She passed away here the last few months. Just the most beautiful soul. She edited my books, edited over and over. We finally learned to work on the computer and type on the computer, put it on a thumb drive. Otherwise, we wasted reams of paper. She'd bleed on my story. And I'd tell her, you just about killed me. Well, get it right, she'd say.
Oh my gosh.
She worked for 28 lawyers. She'd been a legal assistant for 28 lawyers out in Denver. I mean, she was a gift to me in my writing. And then the computer, progressed. And I got an editing program and and boy, it's as mean as she was. I mean, it just rips up my writing and tells me this is wrong. And so I have learned to edit and write, and I'm a good writer. I love it. I love telling a good story. I've got a murder mystery out. I've written a romance novel. I'm working on a Western. and I've got another murder mystery half done. Then I've got a counseling book, and I've got 2 more books of poetry done. I think with these 2 books out, I'll have over 2,000 poems published.
Oh, wow.
Words. You know, I had to be silent as a kid. And I tell my youngest daughter, you know, I'm in my second childhood, so all I got to do is talk, talk, talk. So,
Yeah.
Stuff, poetry comes to me. It's been very therapeutic and healthy. And some of it's dark, but one of my college professors told me I was better than Robert Frost or some of our national poets. And I told her, I said, that's a big compliment. And I've written a song, and it's called Cry for Us. I have 2 wonderful people here, Brian Faulkner and Boyd Barton, who've set it to music and written out the notes. It's published, and we hope it goes with the movie. But it's about child abuse. And it was sang at my church, and the pastor had me to get up and tell a short piece about my life. And I sat back down, and I thought, oh, everybody's going to see, you know. And he told me when the song was being sung, there wasn't a dry eye in the church. It's very, it's a very, and most of my poetry is musical. It's very lyrical. And one of those guys told me, said, we can't look at your stuff anymore. All we can see is songs that we know we can write for you. You'll get it out, put it to music. So they're wonderful men, been a very, large blessing to me here in the community. And I want to mention that in Women in Film, Becky Bartlett is the president, and Carmen Patterson is also part of Women in Film in Arkansas, and these women have been a blessing to me. They've been helping, and it's a joy whenever the community that we're in the film industry. We've got so many people in Northwest Arkansas. We've got a studio in Fort Smith, one in Fayetteville that are making movies. Arkansas's got the potential to really grow. And one good thing here in Russellville, they're trying to get a casino in. I'm not for gambling, but there's so much. It's 1,000 jobs it'll bring to the area, and so many. Be a lot of concerts that can come. I'm looking forward. I love good restaurants. I like to cook, and I will say this: I've lost 85 pounds, and it's taken me a while, but I got it off. I figured I'd have to. Yeah, I tell my doctors, you know. At my age, I want to stay looking good. I'm going to have to meet God, and I sure want to look my best.
Oh my goodness! You're a delight, Cae.
I recently planned my funeral, and I told the guy that did my hip replacement, I said, now you know I'm going to donate my body. And he said, yeah, they come to the orthopedic clinic department first. And I just got my paperwork from UAMS today. He said, I don't want to see your body. I don't want you to come here. He said, I know you. I said, but think of the fun you're going to have chopping me up.
God.
I figured I might as well give a gift to somebody else if I can help train another surgeon. I've had a good life. So I've done that, and I'll have, if they don't take me, I've opted for a green burial. Did you know that you can just be wrapped in a blanket, and there are cemeteries that will take your body now in Arkansas and bury you? I told the funeral home, I went and got all that done. And I told the funeral home, I said, tell my daughter that she's got a special blanket, wrap me in it, and then just duct tape me like a mummy and take me and put me in the grave. You know, being a writer, we have to have a sense of humor.
Gosh, you ain't wrong.
Oh, honey, I love being a pastor and working the ministry. I had so much fun in my sermons. I love to do illustrated sermons, and it's so much fun watching people's faces when, you know, a whole big congregation, sometimes 500 people, and you're looking at them and they get it, and all of a sudden it just erupts in hysteria. We make, in life, going back to victimization, we need to give joy back to the victim. And that's my goal. I've got 16 children's books to get to if I ever get them written. I've got them, all the stories. I just got to type them up and get them printed.
Oh, wow.
You know, there's one thing I determined when I was a child. When I grew up, and especially after I found out what my husband was done, I decided I hadn't laughed enough. And so now I find joy sitting out here on my back porch listening to the whippoorwills. And the little owl, I've got a barn owl, he comes and he goes, hoo, hoo, hoo. And I say, it's me, it's who, it's me. But we've got too serious in this country, too far divided. We need to come together and, give support to the vulnerable. And our children are such a precious asset. We can't let them down. We have to keep fighting, Adam. We've got to find a conclusion in the law and bring safety for the children and for women and men who are being battered. I've worked with battered men, and it's sad. And men, it's very difficult for them to come forward and to admit to sexual abuse or to being battered. I've worked with boys who've said, I have to be gay. They get an erection during the abuse, and they're often told, well, you enjoyed it, you wanted it. And the girls are done the same way. And again, going back to laughter, there's joy even in these horrible situations. We can find joy in living, and that's how I hope I can bring with this book and the movie, is to show that, yeah, it was bad, it was horrible. But in the end, when they see me now, they know I survived, and it's possible.
Definitely. I did want to. I do think you're right about bringing positivity to the victims, and as far as men being abused and whatnot, it's a thing where they don't want to look weak. I would assume. I'm a man, but I haven't had anything like that happen. But I'm a strong man. That couldn't have happened to me. No. It's something that's hard, I guess, for someone, a man who's not as sensitive to do that, not as in touch with his feminine side to do something like that, And even for some who are in touch with their feminine side, it's difficult for them to do, to come out and just say it, basically. I was raped or I was abused or anything.
It's ingrained in our society. Men don't cry. Little boys are not supposed to cry. And this is why, I mentioned in what we're talking about is the fact that it matters to me. It matters to the next victim if we tell who's hurting us. We stop the cycle of abuse. In my family, sexual abuse goes back 6 generations on both sides of the family, on maternal and paternal sides of the family. And it is a generational sin, a generational learned behavior that unfortunately goes from one generation to the next of sexual abuse, of perpetrators and of victims. And again, I'm asking people to join me in the fight. Name the perpetrator. Us get their names out there. There's doctors, lawyers, as I said, pastors, legislators, men in society, all walks of life, poor, rich, it doesn't matter. There is perpetrators at all levels who are abusing our children.
Yeah. Bring truth to power. Speak the truth. I mean, if enough people are saying it, enough people are listening, something's gonna be done about it. Something's gotta be done about it for sure, because it's ridiculous. I mean, who does that? Why would you do that? Why are you, whether it's physical abuse or sexual abuse, mental, verbal, whatever, any kind of abuse, what is the root for it? Why is it okay in your mind for you to do this to someone? And on the flip side, it's not okay for the people for the victims to be feeling alone and isolated. And that's why it's important for you to bring that truth to power, for them to be feeling strong enough, whether it's bravery or whatever it may be, to come forward and tell someone, anyone who will listen, because with these horrible things happening, the only way it's going to get fixed is with people talking, with people bringing this truth to light, basically, and I think, God, I think something has to be done about it, and I don't know what or how, but something definitely has to be done about it. Going to your, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to ask you a film question, but we're still on this topic, and I don't want to jump off of it if there's a lot more that you want to say about it.
Fine. No, it's fine.
Okay. As far as going with your film career, I don't know if that's a good word for it or not. Have you worked with much films or any filmmaking or anything like that, screenplay writing or anything?
No, I absolutely know nothing about making a movie. Now, if it's a stage play, I have a degree in that. I'm very comfortable in directing a play on stage or theater. But as far as filmmaking, no. That's the reason I mentioned women in film, because they're the people that know how to get, a movie, or people here in Arkansas. We've got the Film Commission. They have a rebate on the people who come here to make films in Arkansas. If they're made here, they get matching funds given back to them. So I'm hopeful that the film industry in Arkansas will just explode and take off, and that people out there will know just what a great state we have for filmmaking.
Well, thank you very much. Everybody go check out Cae's books. We'll be on the lookout for that movie at some point. I can't wait to see that, hopefully sometime in the near future. But thank you again for stopping by.